Frequency Radio.
Howard is asked, the question, is it safe? Expediency asks, the question, is it politic? Vanity asks, the question, is it popular? But conscience asks, the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but he must do it because conscience tells him it is right.
Every time our country stands in the path of danger, an instinct seems to summon her finest first, those who truly understand her. When freedom shivers in the cold shadow of true peril, it's always the patriots who first hear the call. When loss of liberty is looming, as it is now, the siren sounds first in the hearts of freedom's vanguard.
Fighting for humanity and against globalism, one mind at a time. It's the Freedom Link with Joe Joseph.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Freedom Link, this 28th day of January, 2015. I'm Joe Joseph, and man, what a good show I got for you tonight, because my good friend Jay is here, and also Kev Baker of the KBS show. Of course, I had to go ahead and crash it just for a second, just to kind of, set the tone for the night, I guess you could say. And it was a shame. I was really looking forward to Kev having the kitty fiddler hunter on. But unfortunately, he wasn't feeling up to speed to do the broadcast, and he'll be on here in the near future.
Yeah, what's with that, Joe? I mean, what is that? Is that a coincidence? Did he get hit with, the diarrhea gun? Am I a paranoid conspiracy?
Diarrhea gun. I know I got hit with the diarrhea gun. There's no doubt about that. I mean, it was bad.
Well, he didn't have a heart attack, so it wasn't the usual CIA heart attack gun. So
I'm going to tell you, it doesn't necessarily take getting killed to make you incapacitated. All you need to do is piss out of your ass for a while and get a nice case of baboon ass to where you're sitting on a pillow. And that pretty much takes you out of the game.
We had Chris Spivey on the other night, obviously one of the most outspoken personalities in the alternative media in the UK, and he was explaining how he was due in court, and he got this really, really bad case of the flu. Now, you've seen the guy, Joe. This is no small guy. He can take his whack of things. But he was saying that when he was closing his eyes, he was honestly getting this message telling him, do not go near a doctor and do not go near a hospital, because if you do, guess what? You're not coming out the other side. And he certainly has a question mark over whether that was conveniently timed or just a random act.
You think it was a random act?
I don't personally. Not what I know now, no.
Yeah, I don't either. Jay, I see you survived Snowmageddon, huh?
Snowmageddon 2015 has come and buried us in a beautiful 30-inch white blanket of purity. And yes, we are alive, and we're here, and we're good, though.
How come they never named the storms or called it Snowmageddon when we were kids?
Well, that's because we were used to it. It was just like, the blizzard of this year and or this month, and we moved on with life.
I know. John Sinqui, a good friend of mine, you may have heard him on the show before, folks. He posted a great meme today of just, like a traffic accident in Connecticut and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man going through a Snowmageddon, So it was kind of fitting. The fear mongering that goes on with everything from snow to just everything. It's crazy the way
it is. It's unbelievable.
The media's hyping everything. Yeah,
they hype it all, and they're on the air, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's snow!" And I'm thinking, it's New England, it's winter, it happens. Let's move on with life. No.
It's bad. Now that we talked about diarrhea guns and baboon ass, the chat room has now we have done it. They have now delved into toilet humor in the chat room.
Well, the only place the show has now to go is up.
Well, that's right. And really, folks, it farts, are like the jokes that never get old. It is. It never gets old. You'll be 85 years old and next thing it just never gets old. Never gets old. So enjoy the toilet humor in the chat room. But speaking of that, I want to start off tonight with something that I just found extremely surprising. No, but egregious, draconian? Yeah. And that has to do with what's going on in Seattle. Anybody that lives out in the Seattle, Washington area is in for a rude awakening as a new law will levy a fine on homes that do not properly sort food out of their garbage. That's right. Emblazoned with a red citation tag, violators will start to be fined anywhere from $1 to $50 in July. And for now, Seattle residents will just be publicly shamed by a scarlet letter, like like a red tag on their trash can. I mean, is this not crazy? The last time I checked, now this is the way things are supposed to work. Jay, I'm going to bounce this off you. Maybe I'm wrong, but you pay for a service, right? And that service may be trash pickup. If you pay for a service and you throw something in there, they're supposed to pick it up. Why would you get fined for a service that you're paying for? I don't get it.
Okay, now don't get me wrong. I'm good with the recycling.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that we're wonderful. We've got our stuff. I don't mind throwing my plastic and my metal and everything else in the recycling bin, and they come and they pick that up too. We're very lucky that we have that. But as far as trash, I mean, trash is trash, and don't get me wrong. A lot of it goes in the garbage disposal, and we'll grind it up. But there's always parts of stuff that you are not edible.
But wait. But what if it goes in the landfill, right? Okay, now what a lot of people are doing, like in the Hampton Roads area.
But I'm not worried about the food going in the landfill because it's
No.
biodegradable by nature.
Yes, and then like what some of these dumps are doing now is they're reclaiming the gases that come out of the landfills, and they're using it as power generating gas, because it burns. It's methane and stuff like that comes out.
Absolutely. And
So they're
there's
actually
nothing wrong with
capturing
that.
it.
They're
No.
capturing it. They're reutilizing it. It's fine. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some scary stuff that should not go in the trash.
Yes, no
because
doubt.
it will break down in the next 4.5 billion years. But but your coffee grounds, well, I think we're okay. Coffee grounds are not going to destroy the world, and if you're throwing your orange peel in the trash, it's not really edible.
Okay, so wait a minute. Now the tags are part of what the city calls, this according to CNS News, a public education campaign. That's what by law they're labeling it as. A public education campaign. Yeah, we're going to educate you by fining you every time you put your coffee grounds in the trash.
Well, the way I like to determine this is that there's the green movement, okay, but then there's the dark green movement,
and there's a bowel movement too, and sometimes it comes out dark green.
This go back to your little home. This is the dark green movement, in that a good thing is gone too far. When there's the people that reach into your recycling bin at work and pull out your yogurt container and say you should wash this out and bring it home. I'm like, I'm recycling it at work. It's just fine, thank you.
When it comes down to it, though, dude, they look to tax everything. It's unbelievable, unreal.
Well, right. Well, that's the thing is that that behavior becomes a revenue generating situation, and it's the same thing. Don't get me wrong. People shouldn't be speeding because it's dangerous, but why do police collect fines on the highway? It's mostly for income, not for
taxation by citation.
It's precisely what it is, and just that whole situation we saw in New York where they decided they weren't going to do it, and they didn't collect on 92% of the citations, and Armageddon did not ensue.
No, and then the city had to come out and said, "Oh no, you will do this, or you're not going to get vacation and everything else. You won't." And that's the thing is like, look, you have to see through the facade, and the facade is, oh well, we need this to keep you safe. No, you don't. We don't. How about we keep us safe? Can we try that a little bit? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not. In philosophy, I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I don't like government. In philosophy, poo. It's never worked. It's always been oppressive. Nothing ever good has come to it, and they've always gotten hijacked. However, that's kind of like an extreme way of thought that in the world isn't really reality. Unfortunately, there's too many people out there that would exploit that opportunity and would go and violate the natural human rights of other human beings. So, that's why the founding fathers said, okay, well, we need something, but maybe, something small, limited. And then, of course, the European influence comes in, the British crown comes in, and it's like the UK. The UK always ruins a good thing, isn't it, Kev? I mean, it's just crap. The Queen, poo, yuck.
Yep, you can rely on us to take a good stinking dump on everything, Joe.
Stupid reptilians. I mean, queens.
You have to go there, don't you?
I did. Because, at some point in time, I saw a great meme the other day that They Live was actually a documentary.
I honestly, no, listen, I've had that conversation with
That's pretty funny.
Melissa Melton and Aaron Dykes, and we decided that it probably is closer to the truth than we give it credit for.
No doubt, dude.
There really is a sign on the back of the television that says obey. Just look carefully.
Yeah,
Okay,
and Obama built it.
Okay, so back in the 60s, 70s, even the 80s, network television here in the United States, I don't know, maybe in the UK too, but network here in the United States, the TV would go off at midnight. And when they did, they would play the national anthem. And somebody slowed it down, and you were able to see the subliminal messages that were put in between the verses, because they would put the verses up on the board, up on the screen, and then, it would change. It's kind of like your very archaic karaoke for the national anthem. And they would flash these messages, these subliminal messages. So they've been doing it for quite a long time.
Yeah, I've seen that. In the UK, they used to have, this is quite creepy now that I think of it, and I'd never made this connection before. The BBC would show a picture of a young girl for most of the off-air hours. And it was just a young girl sitting in a chair with her hair all tied up, all nice and pretty. And now, what we know about the BBC now, God only knows what was going on there.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, so this draconian thing in Seattle, this is what the guy's name's Watkins. Let me see if I can find his real name, because I don't like this at all. Let's see, in an interview with NPR, Rodney Watkins, a lead driver for Recology Cleanscapes, details how he goes about enforcing the draconian statute. Listen, he says, "You can see all the oranges and coffee grounds," he said, raising one lid. "All that makes great compost. You can put that in your compost bin and buy it back next year in a bag and put it in your garden." Let me ask you something. What are all these people that live in apartment complexes? What are they going to do?
Yeah, where's your compost pile going to be?
Where's your compost pile? Where's your garden going to be?
Yeah.
What garden?
Okay, exactly. In my closet with my grow lamps. Oh, did I say that out loud? No.
They don't want us with gardens,
Really?
though. That's the
No, of
last
course
thing they
not.
want.
You're absolutely right. Now, here's the thing. The ultimate goal of the law is to boost composting while reducing greenhouse gases. Let me stop there.
Okay, hold on. We're going to reduce greenhouse gases by increasing composting. But doesn't composting, by its very definition, cause gases?
Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story, okay? You don't do that. You're right. I mean, if you're going to compost it, does it matter if it composts in a compost pile in your yard or in a landfill? It's still going to compost, and it's still going to turn to whatever base elements that it started out in the first place. But this is what they say. It says food waste is both an economic and environmental burden. Transporting the waste, especially for distances as far as Seattle does, is costly. So, too, is allowing it to sit out in the open, where it produces methane, one of the most harmful greenhouse gases, as it rots. The second largest component of landfills in the United States is organic waste, and landfills are the single largest source of methane gas. Okay, so capture it and burn it. Make power out of it. Do something, but even so, can I tell you something? Greenhouse gases ain't our problem. It's not our problem. Is it bad? Maybe so. But have you guys seen what's going on with the sun lately?
Well, let me just derail you for a quick second there. I mean,
Derail
as far as the greenhouse gases are concerned,
Yeah.
okay. If we're going to be concerned about global warming and greenhouse gases, all you have to do is look at your front door at everything driving by, and there's the problem. Okay, that's where the greenhouse gases are coming from, or from the power plants that are burning coal or whatever they're burning to make electricity, which is being shipped to your home. That's where the problem's coming from. It's not the fact that we are composting trash is not the reason that we have excess greenhouse gases, because we have always had trash historically forever. And it has always like deteriorated and biodegraded forever. And it has never been a problem. And we're talking pre-industrial revolution, pre-history, pre-forever. We've already gone over this for millions of years. We've already had it. It's always been there. It has never caused an issue. So it has to obviously be something else.
And Jay, if it was such an issue, why are they still flying about on their private jets everywhere? All of them turning up at Davos, and then you had them all turning up after the Charlie Hebdo shooting in Paris for their fake photograph. I mean, it's an absolute hypocrisy what is going on with this crap. And it still baffles me why some people still have this misconception that we really are having some kind of global warming event, even though they've changed the language to climate change. That's how powerful the mind washing has been.
They obviously weren't outside shoveling for the last 2 days. Okay, I've got a lot to say about global warming after 30 inches of snow. So the fact of the matter is that yes, is there climate change? There's been a lot of science, and there's been a lot of people that have said yes, things are changing.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean,
I agree with that. Absolutely,
me too.
We can definitely see that. So the question comes down to if it's man-made, I think that a million oranges rotting in the trash does not equal one private plane flight.
Oh, that's good. I wonder if we could equate that, put it in perspective for people. How many rotting oranges would it take to equal one private jet flight? I think that's a good. We could put it in comparison.
That's very important. We can say how many years of trash from an average family would it take to cover one flight from Washington to Paris?
Ooh, how many? That's pretty good, man. All I can say is these draconian laws have nothing to do with the environment. They have everything to do with control. Otherwise, if it did have to do with the environment and these people were so concerned, then they would be changing their lifestyle habits as well, and they're clearly not. So that's one thing to see. Also, it's important to note that there is planetary changes afoot on all of the planets in our solar system, not just Earth. So does man, bear, pig, and cow farts and rotting oranges and coffee grounds have anything to do with the fact that Mars is warming up, or Jupiter is warming up, or Venus is warming up? No? Okay. You know why it's happening? Let me try and put it as easy as possible. This is our magnetic fields, and all the planetary magnetic fields rely on the sun. It's just that simple. The sun and the flare activity and all of that have a direct correlation to the health of our magnetic shield. And when our magnetic shield has, over time, over the last 100 years or so, it started to weaken. Consequently, all of these solar cycles have been getting weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. And this has been just an absolutely pitiful solar maximum. And as a result, our shield is getting weaker and weaker and letting more of these particles and radiation through. And when that happens, guess what happens? The world heats up. Basically, it's like a microwave for the Earth. So what do you think's going to happen? It's going to get warmer, and you're going to have weather changes because the environment's changing. It's the way it is. Now, if you want some information on what happened the last time there was a solar grand minimum, 400 years ago, people had paper and they had writing instruments and they logged all this stuff. They wrote it down and talked about it. And we need to go back and look, because history inevitably is cyclical. It repeats itself over and over and over again. And the sun is no different. The sun goes through cycles. So if you want to know more about what's really causing the global warming, check out the sun. But I'm telling you, taxes and telling people they can't throw food waste away and everything else, Kev, is not the solution to the problem.
No, you're spot on, Joe. And with this polar vortex that's happening in the UK right now, I mean, we all laugh at the fact they call it a polar vortex, but one meteorologist who takes into account sunspot cycles, historical data, moon cycles, is Piers Corbyn. Now, I'm trying to get Piers Corbyn to come on the Kev Baker show, But you can find his work at weatheraction.com, and he is absolutely spot on. And just by using the historical evidence that's there and all these other cycles that do affect the weather and the long-term forecasts and climate, he really is stunningly accurate, Joe.
No doubt. And, guys like Suspicious Observers on YouTube does some great work. I like watching his little forecast every morning. It's a little 5-minute space weather hit. Bam! And you get to see like when solar flares pop, when they're coming in. He's got all the NASA tools. It's awesome. Good little resource, something that's a good hit. You're in and out. 5 minutes doesn't take a lot of time, but it gives you an idea of what's going on with the sun. So, I mean, these are all things that you need to understand. It's not, we don't live in like a petri dish or a controlled environment. The Earth is a very small piece of the universal pie. Very small piece.
And we've got 2 new planets now, Joe, that they're saying are just outside the orbit of Pluto.
Yeah, that's right. What could be meshing with Neptune's orbit? How could that happen?
Well, what about the big asteroid that flew by? I think it was last night or the night before.
It had a moon, didn't it?
Well, this is what I was going to say. Amateur astronomers were saying that it had a very interesting companion with it. And more on from that, some ham radio operators are saying that they were receiving some kind of signal from either the asteroid or the object that was pursuing it.
Oh, yeah, I did. I heard about that, too. SETI must have been like going bonkers, dude. They must have been losing their mind.
But this is kind of reminiscent of the recent Rosetta mission as well. Do you remember that they played us the tune or the noise of the comet before it actually approached it? And it was actually said to be like a alien signal as well. It just makes you wonder, really, doesn't it? All the vibrations and signals that are going on up there. And then we take you back to even before your times of Noah, Joe, and how everything was spoken into existence.
'Tis true. Crazy. No, you're right. That's the thing, is we have no concept whatsoever. Us, modern day human beings outside. And to be honest with you, you go to the Vatican archives, and I'm sure that it's vast and there's a ton of information in there that, gosh, I would love to get my hands on. But you wonder, is that information out there? Was it saved after the flood? Or do they possess ancient knowledge that we don't? I believe they do. Just like the Vatican. How did they know? How did they know to put that telescope, the biggest telescope in the world, that's more powerful than the Hubble telescope, and it's here on the Earth, on Mount Graham in Arizona? Why?
They're playing with the full deck of cards, Joe. We're playing with a joker with a hand tied behind our back. I mean, they got all the documents from the Library of Alexandria. And I mean, what's underneath the Vatican, let's get in there by all means. But can you imagine what is lying in the collections of the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and even the families that we don't hear so much about? That's where the real goodies are, man.
Oh, yeah. And then Jay, I don't know if you ever heard me talk about this, but the Arizona telescope on top of Mount Graham that's owned by the Vatican is also what the ancient Native Americans, even today, the Native Americans know it as a Stargate. And they call the telescope the Lucifer telescope.
All right, so I just want to take this back a step and put it in some context. So
please, okay.
The same church that persecuted Galileo,
yes,
and persecuted, Copernicus, built a telescope, or at least funded the building of a telescope.
Well, yeah.
There's just like hypocrisy going on there, I believe.
Well, it's because it's like, no, you can't. You can't have a theory. You can't have a theory
that shows that science is more important than religion, because if you disagree with our theory and the information that we set forth to control people, then you're wrong, and obviously you're a heretic and you must die. But it's okay for us to go ahead and build this telescope. I want to make sure I got all that right.
That's pretty accurate, isn't it?
Joe, I need to assure the chat room, Robbie, who's a really good close contact on Facebook, he's actually really, he's like that. You guys for real. We are telling you not one word of a lie, my man.
And here, I'll tell you what. Here, let me just do this for you, Robbie. Since
Well,
there you go. Have
Joe.
a little link in the chat room for your viewing pleasure, if you will. Well, no, go ahead.
He's saying
Kev.
also in the chat room that Lucifer is the cause of all our problems. Now, I don't know. Is Lucifer not also looked upon as the light bearer, the light bringer? Okay, they've kind of hijacked that whole thing. But is it all an evil concept?
Don't get me wrong, Kevin. I believe that Satan, as the manifestation of the evil that lurks within all men, is truly our greatest enemy. I completely agree with that, because we will be our own downfall and we will be our own undoing through the actions that we take and the decisions that we make through greed and avarice and all the bad things that exist in the world. Absolutely. That's completely correct. And I believe that that is 100% true. And the fact that they are embodying that in a persona as part of the relief system is, that's the way that they're going to try to personify all those things. And I completely agree with that.
Let me give you the acronym here. Okay, so now we didn't come up with this acronym. This was the Vatican that came up with this. Large binocular telescope, near infrared utility with camera and integral field unit for extragalactic research. What? How do you get Lucifer out of that?
That's easy.
Sure, for you. Not for me. I scratch my head. We'll be right back after these messages, folks. Don't go away.
Org.
Sound Doctrine Ministries with Kenneth Emmanuel. Sundays on Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back, everybody. Joe Joseph here. You're listening to the Freedom Link on Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com. And folks, did you hear all the rave about the newest website to hit the internet?
No.
That's right, KevBakerShow.com. Go there today. Yes. I'm telling you, wow. Dude, you just did this in a day? Oh.
Couple of hours, man.
Like a polar vortex of information.
Hold on. Look at this. I'm going to be the first Facebook, like, pow, bam, just did. Let's see. Say something. Let's see. I love
It wasn't even supposed to be
this
announced yet, dude.
site. There you go. Add a comment. Just did it. Bam.
Oh, man. It's my first attempt, guys, so it's a work in progress. Come on.
It's cool. It's cool. But hey, you know what? Let's get the traffic going. Let's go to KBS. KevBakerShow.com. Yes, he's the big time now. Got his own website. Speaking of big time, right? So, there's been a lot of talk about, we're not alone in the universe. And, the Pope has even come out and said, yeah, it's just a matter of time. Yeah. They're building freaking telescopes everywhere, especially one's named Lucifer and things like that. It just has to make you wonder, what is really going on and what's afoot. Now, the reason why I bring this up, Melissa Melton, after the show last night, asked me to get into the blood moons a little bit. And I think now's probably a good time to get into that, as signs are very important. We all know that. Like, especially anybody that pays attention to the independent media guys knows that signs are extremely important, aren't they, Kev?
Well, I'm just worried right now. It was Martin, obviously my co-host. Couldn't make it tonight, a bit late for him, but he was explaining how right now Israel and Hezbollah, they are on the verge of all-out conflict. And with elections coming up in March in Israel, their government are keen to hold off any fighting until after that. And what comes up just after March, Joe? April and the next blood moon.
Ah, yes. But there's a history to these blood moons, okay? And I want to go through the history a little bit so that people understand. And I'm going to use biblical prophecy here to kind of put things in perspective. And I'm going to start with a prophet named Ezekiel. He said, but if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet, so that the people are not warned, and the sword comes and takes any one of them, that person is taken away in his iniquity, but his blood I will require at the watchman's hands. Why do you think I do what I do? It has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with doing our duty as human beings, as fellow human beings. And when you have mutual respect for your fellow man and you exhibit personal responsibility, you can't not talk about this stuff. You have to scream from the mountaintops and say, oh, hell, there's some crazy stuff going on, and fight it. It's really important. So let's define some things really quick. The first thing is Genesis 1:13 describes, when you said, God spoke us into existence, spoke the world into existence, spoke the universe into existence. And in 1:13, he said that he gave us the sun and the moon, first and foremost, for signs. And that's significant. When they start talking about, listing things off, normally, if you look in the Bible, it's always in order of precedent. So Genesis 1:13, given us the sun and the moon for signs, then we start to understand that, maybe we should be paying attention to them. Now, the signs, they can be divided on the blood moons, the tetrads, and whether we don't know if they have any prophetic importance. So we have to go back into history and take a look and see maybe they do. Maybe there's significant events that happen every time these blood moons come about. So first, let's define what a tetrad is. You know what a tetrad is, Kev?
Yeah, sorry, it's a group of 4, is it not, Joe?
Yes, 4 consecutive lunar eclipses that are all total eclipses. So they have to be a total lunar eclipse. Now, you were right. We had 2 of them last year, Passover and Sukkot. So 4/15/14 was Passover, 10/8/14 was Sukkot. Full eclipses, full lunar eclipses. Now on March 20th, 2015 is our next event, and that's Nisan 1. Nisan 1 is the new year. That's the Hebrew New Year. And Nisan 1 is also a full solar eclipse. And then on 4/4/15 is the next total eclipse is on Passover. So, and let me explain a little bit about the Saros cycle. The Saros cycle is an eclipse cycle with a period of about 18 years, 11 days, 8 hours, that can be used to predict eclipses of the sun and the moon. One cycle after an eclipse, the sun, earth, and moon return to approximately the same relative geometry, and nearly identical eclipses will occur west of the original location. So that's the Saros cycle. That's something to understand when you start to look into the solar and lunar cycle. Also understand that NASA, about 15 years ago, launched a probe that put mirrors on the moon, and we were able to bounce lasers off it and figure out the lunar cycle to 1/10,000% accuracy. That's huge when you start thinking about it, because now we can go back and look at the lunar cycle thousands of years before and thousands of years into the future, because it's relatively static, So, so from a tetrad perspective, this has only happened, tetrads, blood moon, and full eclipses on the Jewish feast days, has happened 8 times since Christ was crucified. It's the best way I can explain that. So 8 times. Now, there's some significant events that have happened around that time. The first one that happened after was 162 to 163 AD. And when that happened, there were 4 total lunar eclipses, Passover and Tabernacles. coinciding with the worst persecution of the Jews and Christians in the history of the Roman Empire. So during that time, there was killing like you wouldn't believe. Within 3 years, the Antonine Plague killed 8 million people, or a third of the population. A third at that point in time. It's unbelievable. And that was 162 to 163 AD. The next one that occurred was 795 to 796 AD. And there were 4 total eclipses occurring on Passover and Yom Kippur holidays. And while King Charlemagne of the Holy Roman Empire established a DMZ buffer zone between France and Spain, that ended century of Arab invasions into Western Europe. So there was a significant event there. Also in 842 and 843 AD, there were 4 total lunar eclipses that occurred on Passover and Yom Kippur holidays. And shortly after the eclipses, the Vatican Church in Rome was attacked and looted by the Islamic invasion from Africa. So again, very, very significant event. Then we have 860 to 861 AD and Passover and Yom Kippur again. Shortly after the eclipses, the Byzantine Empire defeated Arab armies at the Battle of Lalakeon in Turkey and permanently stopped the Islamic invasion of Eastern Europe. So that was 860 and 861. And let's go on. We got, this is where it gets really good, okay? So the last 3 blood moons are very important because not only do they affect the Hebrews, but they also play a direct role in the rebirth of the second Israeli nation state. Now, you have to separate the nation of Israel from the Hebrews. You have to do that because if you don't, you're doing a grave injustice. You're basically using the same old stereotype card that we use with race baiting and everything else here in the United States and throughout the world. Same thing. You have to understand where those people came from, the ones that started the second nation state of Israel. And we can get into that too later on. But the next tetrad occurred in 1493 to 1494. What do you think is significant about that time period, guys? Don't all talk at once. I mean, I don't want.
This is a trick question, right? Or should we say that massive mercantilism caused the exploration of the Western and Southern world? Is that
Yes.
a fair statement?
Okay, so
Vasco da Gama, heads down around Africa to go to India, and Columbus and the other Spanish explorers head, to India, quote unquote, but kind of run into the United States on the way.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what we were told, right? And that did happen, no doubt. But listen to this: 4 total lunar eclipses, Jewish Passover, and the Feast of Trumpets holidays, 1493 to 1494. Only months after, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain ordered all Jewish people to leave the country. A little background story. After about 200 AD, Spain became and remained a second Jewish homeland for well over a millennia. So deep woven into the fabric of Spain are the Jews that neither history can be fully studied without considering the influence of the other. That's something that a lot of people don't know about. And in the same month in which their majesties, Ferdinand and Isabella, issued the edict that all Jews should be driven out of the kingdom and its territories, in the same month they gave the order to undertake with sufficient men the expedition of discoveries to the West Indies. So begins Christopher Columbus's diary. So it's very interesting. The expulsion that Columbus refers to was so cataclysmic an event that ever since the date 1492 has been almost as important in Jewish history as in American history. Only July 30th, or on July 30th of that year, the entire Jewish community, about 200,000 people, were expelled from Spain. Tens of thousands of refugees died while trying to reach safety. In some instances, Spanish ship captains charged Jewish passengers exorbitant sums, then dumped them overboard in the middle of the ocean. In the last days of the expulsion, rumors spread throughout Spain that the fleeing refugees had swallowed gold and diamonds, and many Jews were knifed to death by brigands and all that, hoping to find treasures in their stomach. I mean, that's what happened. That's huge. When you think about just the slaughter, and also around that time, we're still getting over the Spanish Inquisition. It was a really rough time then. So, 1493 and 1494, that was a tetrad. Now, there was a lull. So from 1493 to 1494, all the way to 1949, there wasn't a tetrad, none. And then in the last, this will be in the last since 1949. There was one in 67, and now there's one coming that we're actually in the middle of now.
And 67 was a significant year as well, Joe, was it not?
Well, both 49 and 67.
Right. So listen to this. Okay. So in 49, during the first
Establishment
Arab
of the new state. Yep.
The first Arab-Israeli war for independence, just after Israel became a nation again for the first time in 2,000 years. By the way, how did they go about doing that? You had Chris Everard on the show last night. Was it last night or the night before?
Yeah, last night. One of my favorite guests. He's so knowledgeable, man.
Incredible. Chris is just a top-notch guy. And I'll be on his show here a week from Sunday. And this is one of the things that we're going to be talking about the 6 million Jew myth. And if you get into it and dive into the propaganda campaign that brought about the second nation state of Israel and what they used as justification to bring it about and gain worldwide acceptance, it'll make you sick. It'll make you sick. And it has nothing to do with Hebrews or Jews or anything else. It has to do with the deception that was put out. And it was all instrumental, and it's all because of the Talmudic prophecy that said, hey, when you return to your land, you'll return with 6 million less. So starting in the early 1900s, they unleashed a propaganda campaign where you just had article after article after article after article talking about the Holocaust that was going on in Russia, the Holocaust that was going on in Europe, and how 6 million Jews are starving and dying and oppressed, and 6 million, 6 million, 6 million. And you can go look these up. I mean, these are all New York Times, all these major publications that put this out, and they were asking for money, and there were quotas on how much each region of the United States and other areas of the world would have to contribute to help the oppressed Jews and everything else. Meanwhile, do you think they were getting the money? Of course they weren't getting the money. They weren't getting any help or any resources. Ask the Ukrainian Jews that were slaughtered at the hands of Joseph Stalin. I mean, you just can't quantify the horror that went down. But the 6 million myth is a myth. There's no way you can quantify the amount of people that were slaughtered pre and during World War II. You can't. However, you can kind of surmise it based on, the limitations of how many people do you have to kill a day, that type of thing. And what you come to find out is it wasn't 6 million. However, the number 6 million comes from about 50 years of propaganda prior to, all using this Talmudic prophecy. 6 million have died. So look at this, 6 million less. We can create this. This is this is prophecy. It's right here. So they created the second nation state of Israel. And in 1949, during the first Arab-Israeli War for independence, just after Israel became a nation, Israel themselves declared themselves a nation in 1948. The first permanent government took office, though, on January 25th, 1949. Even though they were declared a nation state, a government was not actually seated until 1949. Israel had just a transitional government in 1948. In this way, the tetrad can tie to the year 1949 for the first elected office of that year, and the birth year could still be 1948. And during the first few months of 1949, direct negotiations were conducted under United Nations auspices between Israel and each of the invading countries, resulting in armistice agreements which reflected the situation at the end of the fighting. And of course, when that happened, guys, it didn't solve the problems. All it did was just kind of keep things, on a slow simmer. And then in 1967, we had the 6-Day War. And that was when Israel recaptured Jerusalem. And then we had a whole new hoax that took place. And do you guys know what that hoax is?
Oh, I think it's going to be something to do with Fort Antonio.
Fort Antonia, yes. So this is why it's very significant to understand. You have to see the signs, understand the signs. So now all of a sudden they recapture Jerusalem and they say, oh, yes, look at this. And we have the Temple Mount again and everything else. But whoa, what? Temple Mount? Well, wait a minute. Josephus didn't say the Temple Mount was still there. He said Titus left neither a stone above or below, and he sowed the land with salt. There was no trace of the temple. So why is it that everybody goes and they do the little Humpty dance in front of the freaking temple wall? They put their hand on there and they write their prayer on a little piece of paper. They stick it in the wall there.
Oh, it must be the Rock of the Dome.
Yeah. Okay, so there's another thing. Look at all the bloodshed because they say, oh, no, that's the Temple Mount. And why do they have a Muslim mosque on top of the Temple Mount? It's not the Temple Mount. That's why. It has nothing to do with the Temple Mount. It's Fort Antonia. It's a Roman fort. So anytime anybody prays to this Roman fort or puts their hand on there or whatever, you're praying to Rome. And this was another deception that was perpetrated. This is how you see through all of the garbage and the crap. This is how you know that the nation state of Israel has nothing to do with the biblical Israel that the Bible talks about. They're two totally separate entities. This is an imposter. It's apostate. Everybody, anybody who's anybody knows this. If you take a little time and do just a wee bit of research, you'll find it out. And this brings us to now our blood moon tetrad that we're experiencing right now, guys. And
not good.
And it's not good. It's not good. Okay, so Passover Sukkot is what we have. The last lunar eclipse, September 28th, 2015, on the Feast of Tabernacles. And when that happens, it also coincides with the moon when it's at perigee, meaning it's at its closest point to the Earth at the same time that it's a lunar eclipse, and it is going to be a blood moon. Because these lunar eclipses make the moon look like blood. And guess where you can see it best?
Ooh, I would probably hazard a guess. Jerusalem.
Jerusalem! And what's significant about the year 2015 on the Gregorian calendar? It is also what's called a Shemitah year. Now, if you don't know what a Shemitah is, the Shemitah is every 7th year you have a Shemitah, or a Jubilee year. And basically what that is every 7th year, you don't plant anything in the ground, you let the ground rest, and you forgive all debt. Basically, it's everybody rests. Take the stress off. It's kind of like the Sabbath. From Friday sundown to Saturday sundown is the Sabbath. And you're supposed to just, or go play, go do something, but take a break. That's what it's all about. Take a break and thank the Creator for giving you a break. Hey, look at this. Here's a break. It's also where our bankruptcy law, our modern day bankruptcy law came from. Every 7th year, you can declare bankruptcy. Do you think that's a coinky dink? No, that's where it came from. So not only is it, okay, so we got blood moons, right? Blood moon on September 28, 2015, when the moon's at perigee, best seen from Jerusalem on a Shemitah year. So, question, how many times in the history of the earth has that happened? Go ahead.
Not many.
How about 0?
Wow.
It's never happened before. And like I said, folks, they can go back and they can check this out. They know the lunar cycle now. How many times into the future is this going to happen? 0. That is why everybody's so flipped out about this. It's never happened before, and it's never going to happen again, at least as far out as they've tracked it. So that's what makes this so incredibly interesting. And now I've heard a lot of things too about, September 12th, wherever you are is where you're going to live. I don't know. There's one thing that I don't do, guys. I don't put dates on things because I'm certainly not clairvoyant. I don't know.
Joe. What's that September the 12th thing?
That's one of the things that are floating around right. September the 12th, where you live is where you're going to be. That means that wherever you are, that's where you're living. That if you're traveling on September 12th, you're going to live there. That's where it is.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, technically,
okay.
the Shemitah year ends on the 13th, that Sunday, September 13th. And there's obviously been a lot of talk about, the correlation between that and the 7-year cycle of prosperity and
yes.
a lot of other discussions that are out there. And I'm with you, Joe. I mean, I think that there are trends and things move in and predictable and forecastable directions, but you can't put a single date on anything.
Of course not. And that's why I don't like doing that. So I'm not going to. But what I can tell you is the Bible also says to people,
totally going to like Hawaii on the 12th of September, though.
JMed 77 said Amsterdam on September 12th. No doubt, dude. I'd be there too. But seriously, the thing that you have to understand, all of you listening tonight, is what these signs are for those that are paying attention. And all you have to do is watch. Don't draw conclusions. Don't try to put dates on anything. That's stupid. Jesus said, you know not the time or the hour when I come back. Well, the same thing is true about all these events. We don't know what day or time or anything's going to happen. We don't know this kind of stuff. But we do know that the Creator put the sun and the moon out there for signs. And this has never happened before, and it's not going to happen again. So even let's take the Bible out of it. Here is a cosmic alignment of sorts that is happening that doesn't happen before or after. And there's cosmic significance to it. When planets align, there's cosmic significance to it. When you're born in a certain month and you have an astrological sign, typically you have a personality set that is kind of geared towards what that sign is. Like if you look at what that sign is and you read like the personality traits of the people that are born during that sign, they're relatively accurate. So the cosmos, the planets, the stars, the universe they have a direct relationship to us. So all I can say is it doesn't matter if you're Christian, if it's esoteric, if you're Muslim, it doesn't matter. What you believe doesn't change reality. So all you have to do is watch. So watch and understand that if you're watching, then you can prepare. You'll see the signs and you'll know what to do. That's all I'm saying. And that's all you have to do. Don't get crazy, Don't go batshit crazy and all loony. Just do what you got to do. And everything is going to be fine. I don't know. Is September 12th going to be that? It could be. And if that's the case, I know where I'm going to be. But maybe Amsterdam. Who knows? Hour number 1's done. Hour number 2's on the way. Gosh, we got so much to talk about. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about the powers that shouldn't be. The Rothschilds, when the Freedom Link returns. Don't go away.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
Cowardice asks, the question, is it safe? Expediency asks, the question, is it politic? Vanity asks, the question, is it popular? But conscience asks, the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but he must do it because conscience tells him it is right.
Every time our country stands in the path of danger, an instinct seems to summon her finest first. Those who truly understand her. When freedom shivers in the cold shadow of true peril, it's always the patriots who first hear the call. When loss of liberty is looming, as it is now, the siren sounds first in the hearts of freedom's vanguard.
Fighting for humanity and against globalism. One mind at a time. It's the Freedom Link with Joe Joseph.
Welcome, everybody, to hour number 2 of the Freedom Link right here on Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com. I'm Joe Joseph, along with my good buddy Jay and Kev Baker, the Kev Baker Show, kevbakershow.com. Don't forget to check out that website. Oh, yeah. So, guys, since we talked about, the deception at the end of the broadcast about, the 1967 thing, taking back Jerusalem, setting up the worship of the Fort Antonia, I think it's pretty fitting to get into, the powers behind what brought about, this new nation state. And to do that, I want to lead in with one of my favorite clips of all time that kind of gets into the powers that be behind all of this.
Well, it's a well-known fact, Sonny Jim, that there's a secret society of the 5 wealthiest people in the world, known as the Pentaverate, who run everything in the world, including the newspapers, and meet tri-annually at a secret country mansion in Colorado known as the Meadows.
So who's in this Pentaverate?
The Queen, the Vatican, the Gettys, the Rothschilds, and Colonel Sanders before he went tits up. Oh, I hated the Colonel with his wee beady eyes and that smug look on his face. Oh, you're gonna buy my chicken. Oh.
Dad, how can you hate the Colonel?
Because he puts an addictive chemical in his chicken that makes you crave it fortnightly, smart arse.
Interesting. Cuckoo.
Yeah. So anyway, that was from So I Married an Axe Murderer. And if anybody that likes
Colonel
it.
Sanders, clearly not a cornerstone of the underground regime.
You don't think so? You don't think Colonel Sanders had anything to do with it?
Well, obviously, if you get extra crispy or original cholesterol, you're just going to die if you eat too much of it. So why would he kill off his own population?
Because Agenda 21, he was in on the ground floor. That's all it was, dude. Let's just put a bunch of, and let's put some lard in there and everything. Yeah, we'll get everybody to check out by the time they're like 55. We'll bring the population down. Oh, by the way, Jay, didn't you know that this decade is the first time in recorded human history that the population of the Earth, since the flood, that is, so that the population of the Earth has actually gone down.
Well, no, actually, I might disagree with that fact. If you want to look at the Black Death,
but that only encompassed
1385. There was a definite dip in world population, and we did a good job back in 1945 after killing off 50 million people. To cause the world population to dip. So we've done a few good jobs of eradicating people.
Do you know that the Earth's population actually didn't go down then, though? It actually did not go down. It was still going up because, like people in South America and Africa and over in a lot of places in China, all that stuff was kind of centralized.
Oh, we killed plenty of people in China.
Oh, we did do that too.
Yeah, the Japanese were definitely working on that.
But yeah, this is the first time that this decade they're projecting a population decrease.
Oh,
why? Why could that be? How could that happen?
Well, let me say that actually this is not a bad thing, in my opinion. Because the fact is that there is a finite amount of resources on the planet. There is a finite amount of land. There is a finite amount of water.
Yes.
And if we are going to use these two integral things to create food, there is, I don't want to say finite amount of food, but there's definitely a diminishing return on the amount of food you can actually create.
So let's just say I had a magic wand.
Well, but we don't. The problem is that they say, innovation. We're going to just keep inventing stuff so we can make more with the same amount of land and the same amount of water, and we're going to feed more and more people. But at some point, you can't. At some
Okay.
point, there's a threshold of capacity that we're going to reach, and either A, we do the smart thing like Japan did and actually
Yep.
manage the reduction in their population, or B, we do the not smart thing like they did in the Road Warrior, and it all just goes completely off the cliff, and people are then deciding to kill each other because they don't have the resources.
So let's just say, for example, that I have a magic wand and I turn everybody in the world instantly into Tibetan monks. Kapow! Everybody becomes Tibetan monks. Did you know that I could give people 1 acre for every person on the face of the planet, 1 acre, and they would all fit inside the footprint of Texas with land to spare? And if you live like a Tibetan monk, then you wouldn't be taking the resources that we do now.
All right, so let me make sure I got that straight. So if we've got 8 billion people,
8 billion people, yes,
8 billion people. Okay, so we basically need 8 billion acres of
8 billion acres.
8 billion acres of habitable land.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just saying land size. You could fit them in within the area of Texas.
So 8 billion acres basically will fit Texas.
Yeah.
Okay.
With room to spare.
With room to spare. All right.
I'm just saying. So, but it's all in the way we live. That's really what it all boils down to.
Correct, but there's complications above and beyond that. You're absolutely right. It is completely the way we live, because while an individual, if they had the capacity to farm said acre,
yes,
would be fine. But
absolutely.
In order to have the capacity to farm that acre of land and produce a variety of foodstuffs necessary for survival, that comes down to, well, you need machinery, you need textiles.
We could do Soylent Green.
If we eat each other, then basically we're going to work on the population problem, but there's some ethical issues to love thy neighbor, not consume them.
Death panels, man. Get the death panels going.
Well, I'll take the death panels.
So the problem, I guess the question is, for every 1 acre of land that you live on, how many acres do you need to actually support that 1 acre? That's I think the fundamental underlying question.
I don't know. The Tibetan monks do it pretty easy. All I'm saying is that if we just got off of this whole consumption-based thing and actually lived within our planetary means, I think everything would be all right. Now, I don't have a magic wand, so that's not going to happen. And you're right. There's a problem right now with resources, and we're going to get into that in a second, because this all kind of comes together. Now, we were talking about Israel and the Rothschilds. The reason why I bring this up is because that family and those along with them were really pivotal in creating the second nation state of Israel. It's also important to note that the bloodlines that are there that helped form it were what's known as the Khazars. Now, Kev, you know what the Khazars are, don't you?
Certainly do, Joe.
Go ahead and give the listeners a little something on the Khazars.
Well, they were actually over in Eastern Europe, and I believe...
Yes.
Is that not where the Ashkenazi Jews come out of?
Yes, very much so. You're absolutely right.
Thank goodness for that, or Marty would have sacked me from my own show.
And our man Max Egan has done a lot of research, and Chris Everard as well, done a lot of research into the Khazars and the fact that the second nation state of Israel didn't come about as a result of your traditional Hebrews.
Well, Joe, they came about as basically the brainchild of the Rothschild family, who set up it was Frankfurt, I believe, and then they started getting into banking right around the 1760s. And it's basically the state of Rothschild I look at. And even if you look at the flag of Israel, it's rumoured, I obviously haven't been there, but one of their mansions in Hanover, Germany, I believe, that was actually the symbol that was on their mansion.
Yes, it is. It's actually one of their, almost like a family crest, if you will, of the House of Rothschild. So it has nothing to do with the Star of David. It's kind of like the Department of Defense, right? It used to be called the Department of War. And then they were like, we want to change the dynamic a little bit, so let's change it to the Department of Defense because we want to satisfy those that want neutrality and everything else. We'll just call it defense now. Did that stop us from waging war all over the world? No, because they just said, well, it's because of national defense that we do all
It's
this.
just that it's an optic. That's all it is.
Same thing with Israel, with the second nation state of Israel. It's an optic. It's to make you think. It's to make you want to support that. But in reality, it has nothing to do with it. So that's the thing that people need to understand is that the whole nation state of Israel, and you have to separate the Jews, Hebrews, from the nation state of Israel. Two totally different things that are going on there. So when you understand that, then, Kev, you can look and see all of the other deceptions. It all kind of the veil drops, if you will, in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, you have to come forward to really the 1900s, Joe, and I hope I've not missed anything out here for you.
No, keep going.
There was an agreement in 1917, and that was called the Balfour Treaty, and that was made between Lord Rothschild at the time and Lord Balfour, and that basically promised the Rothschilds that they would one day be given their state of Israel, and that was for support during the First World War. Now, it wasn't until Hitler, and he basically, if you look at it with hindsight, what a good servant for the Rothschilds he was, because it was his actions that led to the formation of this state that was promised all those years beforehand in the Balfour Treaty. And then you have to look at Hitler, guys, because his parentage, he was the bastard child of a maid who just happened to work for who? A Rothschild. And the Rothschilds were partially responsible for the education of Hitler in his formative years. So, unwilling stoogie or a good servant? Who knows?
Yeah, it's very, it's hard. It's hard to see, unless you really break it down. But once you break it down, the veil drops. Boom, you see it all for what it is.
But, there'll be people out there just now, Joe, going, well, why would the Rothschilds sacrifice so many of their own? Well, that's the thing, though. That isn't their own, because there's a fine line between Jews and Zionists. Totally different thing. And they're happy to use the Jews and actually use them as a tool and sacrifice them to achieve their goals and their targets.
No, absolutely. Absolutely right. So, and Robbie in the chat room wanted me to just go over quickly about the 12 tribes of Israel. You have to understand that in biblical prophecy, when it starts talking about the 12 tribes of Israel and the 144,000, that it has nothing to do with Hebrews. It has to do with Israel. Now, what it says is when Christ returns, it'll be 144,000 of God's chosen people left when he returns. What does that mean? Does that mean that it's just 144,000 handpicked Jews that are going to make it? No. It means that things are going to get so damn terrible. It's going to get so freaking terrible that there's only going to be 144,000 of God's chosen people. Now, who are they? Now, I think, this is just me, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, but I think that the light bearers, the ones that are leading the charge, the ones that are taking up that, the mantle of truth, if you will, and sticking their neck out there, and that are being persecuted and that are being executed, those are the ones that are God's chosen people. You that are listening in tonight are God's chosen people. There are millions of us, maybe even billions, but it's going to get so bad. It's going to get so bad that there'll only be 144,000 left when he returns. Now, that's pretty freaking bad. Now, does that mean there's only going to be 144,000 people left on the planet? No. But what it means is that's how few people will actually get it by the time he comes back. That's what it's saying. So you have to understand it's a very small number. And when you take that, you look at the blood moons, you look at the way the stars are lining up and everything else, you can see that there's some bad stuff coming down the pipe. How it manifests itself, I have no freaking clue. I don't know. You look at the world and you say, wow, nukes and economic turmoil and starvation, and it's like you were saying, Jay, about the resources. One of the articles that
can we go back to the resources real quick?
yeah, well, yeah, I just saw I saw an article. Because this plays right into it. I just saw an article asking the question: have we reached peak food? I don't know. Have we? What do you think, Jay?
Well, I think there's something to that. I was just checking my math real quick while we were just talking there. So 8 billion people. I know there's more than 8 billion, but we're going with 8 billion. 64 acres per square mile, basically 12,500,000 square miles. So Texas is 268,000 square miles. The United States is 3,800,000 and change. So no, pardon me. Yeah, 3,800,000 and change. So we basically need 4 United States to give everyone.
Oh, is that right? Is that 4 Okay, that's still a lot, but still, it's achievable. It's achievable.
It's achievable. Yeah, I think we're considering Canada is bigger than the U.S. So
pretty much
not Texas, Joe.
Yeah, well, it's a little bigger than Texas. A little bigger than a bread box.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure we were 100% accurate here.
Yes. Okay. So okay, but even so,
but that aside, it's I think the issue is there are some finite things, and when you were talking about resources, the number one thing is water.
You're absolutely right.
We can't, we in theory, you can obviously make water by, dividing certain things together. You can basically split air to make water, or combine air, pardon me, to make it, through the hydrogen and the oxygen. But there's a finite amount of that material too. So in theory, even if you basically create it, you desalinate seawater, it takes energy to do that. And there's a finite amount of everything. So at the end of the day, there's a finite amount of, non-salted drinkable water.
Question.
Isn't so much for the drinking, but the growing of the food. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Question. Nikola Tesla, pulling energy from the vacuum. Now, over 100 years ago, he could pull the energy straight out of the vacuum of space-time. Antoine Priori did it. T. Henry Murray did it. The patent submitted and submitted and submitted and submitted and submitted. And as a result, it's still not approved. Why? Because they can't prove where the power comes from.
Right. And basically they're saying, if we don't understand it, then obviously it must not be right. So therefore you can't have a patent. Because, 100 years ago, they understood nuclear fusion and they understood, computers and the internet and everything we have now. So of course they must understand everything.
Say we harness that, though.
Oh, yeah.
Now all of a sudden we can desalinate the oceans.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So maybe it is possible, but based upon the current technological suite of availability.
And you said what? Did you say 64 acres or 640 acres per square mile?
No, it's 64 acres.
640 acres per square mile.
That's why I need math checking. That's important.
Yeah, 640 acres. So technically, we'd only need one United States, perhaps the size of Texas.
No. Well, so hold on. So take another zero off that, and what is that? Is that 1 point? I'm just doing the math real quick because I had 12,500,000. So we take one off, so 1.2 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, the Texas still won't do it. You only have 2.
No, I know. Let's just say two United States.
But the United States would do it comfortably.
Okay, so that's my point. Is that there's plenty, and we're not to that point yet. But like I said, you can't. Free will's a bitch. Let's just put it that way. Free will's a bitch to the powers that shouldn't be, to everybody else, because
absolutely.
You can't stop people from doing what they want to do. And the fact is,
you shouldn't even try.
No, exactly. By the way, Jim in the chat room just said, let's see, how do we read it? 36,800,000,000 total acres on Earth. 8 billion people equals 4.6 acres per person.
That's a nice lot. I like that. Thank you.
Hell yeah, man.
Well, who's going to live in Antarctica?
But with all this population going up, I think we're missing something here, folks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Surely moving into the future, we should be looking at going outwards as well, instead of just
Kevin,
getting our acres.
I cannot applaud enough because it's absolutely true.
Let's
fact
get.
of the
I'm
fact
so.
of the matter is that we've always expanded. We've always gone new places, and it's always been the most profitable,
Yes.
prosperous time in history. And I've talked about it on a previous show, but the expansionist spirit of America that you had in
Yes.
the 17th
The
and 18th and
frontierism.
19th, the frontierism, be it, leaving Europe to come to the New World, be it expanding across the United States, being it anywhere you're going to go,
Used to
has
be
been,
prevalent.
it was everywhere because, all that you needed to do as an American was basically put your pack on your back, put your supplies in your wagon, go over the next hill with your family, and you had all of the skills and the abilities to make a success out of anything that you did. What you put into life was what you were going to get out of it. And
So
all you had to do is just point yourself in that direction and go. And if we had that same ability to leave this planet and to go another one and do the same thing, there's going to be people that have the will, the ability, the spirit to thrive regardless of where they are.
That's what humans are. We are explorers. We are inventors. We should all be striving. Every nation should be actually doing this. And if we put money into that and think of the jobs we'd create, and I don't know, it just seems like it makes common sense to be doing that right now. But of course, all this is occulted away from us.
Absolutely right. If you look at the amount of money that people talk about, we wasted all this money going to the moon. But if you look at the amount of money that was invested in the space program versus the amount of development, invention, and productivity that came out of that money, it was the best investment that we ever made in the human race's history. Let's keep doing it.
Yeah, I agree. And if there is other beings out there, be they interdimensional or from other planets, I bet you that's what they're waiting for. They're waiting for us to stop spending our money on bloody weapons and killing each other and actually working together, even if it's competing against one another. That'd be awesome. Some kind of space race. Let's get us out there, man.
Well, the first country to mine the moon is going to freaking, that's it. They stake their claim. They put their flag there and say, hey, this is mine.
Helium-3 or helium-4, I believe it is up there, isn't it?
Yeah, helium-3, that's right. That's the most productive fuel we can possibly have, just sitting there on the moon, baking in solar radiation, becoming.
Let me throw this at you guys. We just had Dr. Brooks Agnew on the broadcast a couple Freaky Fridays back. And, talking about like the hollow earth theory and the way the planets form, and that, physics and science actually supports these planets, the solid ones, to actually be hollow on the inside. And that it could be more of a universal norm that if there is life on other planets, that perhaps they live inside the planet instead of outside the planet.
But I'll ask you guys this. I mean, how really rigid is our model of physics when we start moving out into the bigger picture, into the galaxy and beyond? Will they still hold true?
You're absolutely right, Kevin. I mean, even if you look at, quantum physics and what we know about, quark theory and string theory and all those things, I mean, the math, you can do the math and it works, but we can't reproduce it. We don't understand, how this actually exists in reality. And, if there's any good indicator from past history is if you could do the math and it could be proven independently by different people and they can go through and show that it works, then it does work. I mean, we obviously proved mathematically you could have an atomic, fusion and fission reaction decades, or even, centuries before we actually could do it. So if we can prove these other types of physics do exist, even though we can't actually reproduce them in reality, even with, the Hadron Collider, then the issue is that there's so much out there, not something, but there's so much out there that we have not yet experienced.
And probably so much that we can't even comprehend. And, until recently, Jay, I don't know if you've seen the film Interstellar, but right at the end of that, they gave us like a visual portrayal of what the fifth dimension would look like, where you could basically access any moment in space and time at will.
That was freaky, man.
I thought it was absolutely... Whoever came up with that idea, it was amazing. They're tapped into something. Talking of all these dimensions and things like that, somebody in the chat room a wee while ago said about dimensional disclosure. And, as we talk about quantum physics and stuff like that, other dimensions, other brains, membranes, makes me wonder, and I'm going to go total woo-woo here, but what better way to disclose something like that than to have MH370 just fly out above a major city one day. I had to go woo eventually.
Okay,
man.
but then that also plays into things like the Bermuda Triangle, the pyramid, down in the Bermuda Triangle off the coast of Cuba.
Joe, there's the physics that me and Jay are talking about. We don't quite understand it. I mean, we just say it's unexplained.
Well, yeah, and plus, when you look at the amount of matter that exists in our physical universe, what does it account for? Like 5%?
Well, if you're talking about like dark matter and dark energy and
just the stuff that we can experience.
90% of what we have mathematically determined is there, we cannot see.
Exactly. So where is it? You see what I'm saying? It's unbelievable. Oh, this is great. I love freaking conversations like this. Folks, make sure you stay tuned. We got one more segment to go before we hand it off to Mike and Kristan of the Rundown Live. Coming up next, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, right here on Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com. We'll be right back.
The White Buffalo with John Phillips, Tuesday through Thursdays on Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back, folks. USA King in the chat room just dropped me an interesting link. I'm going to read up on this, but it's primarywaterinstitute.org. And if you check that out, and this is something that I kind of knew, but I didn't realize it was this vast. But, there's a ton of water that actually sits below the earth, not just above. There's a lot of water below the earth. As a matter of fact, Stephen Rice, a guy by the name of Stephen Rice, has this quote: 1 cubic kilometer of granite under the right conditions will yield 1 billion gallons of primary water. Now, I've heard of the old adage, squeezing blood from a stone. You can't squeeze blood from a stone, but I guess you can squeeze water from a stone. That's pretty cool.
It would seem so.
Yeah, and primary water wells aren't a new phenomenon, There is wells like mine, for example. I've got a well, and you go 300 feet down. That's where I get my water. I don't get it from the freaking city or the county or anybody else. 300 feet down. It's an aquifer. Now, the problem that we have, at least here in the United States, is the fact that we're fracking the crap out of our, everything, and we're poisoning all our underground aquifers and water. Now, that's a problem. And we've been doing it since the 40s.
Not here in Scotland, guys. We put a ban on it today.
Something good happened. Yeah, but now I got a question for you. Do you guys have landfills over there? Where do you put them? You're on an island. What do you do with your trash?
Yeah, landfills, man.
Yeah, they ship it to England.
Is that what we do? That's maybe what we do with our trash. No, it all goes to like Virginia. That's where it goes.
No, it's landfills, and then in hospitals when there's like abortions, they're all totally recycled in the furnace.
Oh, I thought Soylent Green is people.
But that's not even a lie, though, folks. It might sound like a joke and me being ridiculous, but there's hospitals being caught doing that in England, burning embryos in the furnace to heat the place.
I thought they sent those to Henry Kissinger.
Him or Prince Philip, so they can
Prince Philip, so they can eat it and gain the life force before. Yeah,
and then they send it to BBC Studios where the necrophiliacs can have their fun. That's right,
and you may think that we're sick for saying that, but there is a certain level of truth to it.
I know you've got to be sick sometimes to actually show the depravity of these people.
So guys, do you think? Let me ask you something. Do you think that we're going to have a, let's just say, in the next 5 years or so? Do you foresee there being a significant quote alien event here in the world?
That's a good question, because is there going to be an event at some point? Oh yes.
Inevitably.
Inevitably. But, I recently went to a Neil deGrasse Tyson lecture, and he made a very good point, which has kind of stuck with me. And he said, if you look at the closest living being to humans, our good old friend, the chimpanzee, that shares, 99% of the same DNA that we have. The most sophisticated chimp out there can, stack a few boxes to climb up on top of them and try to get the fruit out of the tree and maybe learn a little sign language. But, that's really an extraordinary example. And they share 99% of our DNA. Now imagine if we ran into an alien, or let me rephrase that, if an alien ran into us that, shared 1% of our DNA. Wouldn't the biggest problem be that they would look at us and maybe not even think that we're sentient?
Wow. Yeah, it could very well be. We'd just be, a hairless gorilla.
We're not even stacking the boxes to get up onto the tree. They're like,
right.
These guys haven't even left their planet. I mean, why should we bother?
Yeah, that's pretty deep, Jay. What do you think, Kev?
Disclosure.
Oh.
Well, I actually think disclosure is an ongoing event. I think it's there if you want to go out and find it. You've got people like Hellier, who used to be the defence minister, or the defence minister in Canada, and he's talking about how they were dealing with UFOs and things like that. So I think the disclosure is ongoing. I would love to see motherships over every major city, like the TV series V. But I don't think that's going to happen somehow.
That didn't end so well for us.
Exactly.
No. But furthermore, I think it's kind of based on our human limitations. I think that visualization of how it would come about is not exactly reality, because we're not taking into a we're not taking.
Are we prepared to meet them? That's the problem, I think.
No, because what happens if one just kind of walks out of nothing and just appears or whatever, interdimensional beings? How the hell does our human brain, if you're not ready for it, just comprehend it? You can't. It's like tune bin for you. And what happens when people get abducted or anything like that, Kev? What happens to them? Tune bin. That's where you go.
Yeah, and this is the issue. I mean, the difference would be magnitudes different than, since we were talking about the explorers earlier, like Cortez running into the Aztecs. And look how that turned out for the Aztecs. But this is
not good.
This is not even the same comparison. This is like magnitudes of, difference more.
Oh, this is off the scale.
Off the scale, because he didn't just come in via teleporter and appear with like his entire crew. I mean, they sailed over in a ship and had things that the Aztecs maybe couldn't understand, but at least could have been explained to them. But these are going to be things that we can't even understand.
Oh, no doubt, and that's why talking about this kind of stuff is so important, because you cannot continue if we're going to make it to the next level, if you will, then you have to start dealing with these issues. You have to start educating yourself as to how this stuff is going to manifest. And the information's out there, and they have manifested themselves before, both physically. I mean, we've seen the lights in the skies, and we've seen the UFOs, and we've heard of stargates and all this kind of. None of that stuff is false. I mean, do people embellish and maybe make stories or myths up from it? Yeah, but those myths and those stories are derived from actual events.
And Joe, these things have been here before, in my opinion. You just have to look at even old paintings and stuff like that. There's one of Nuremberg a few hundred years ago, and there's big cylindrical objects in the sky, and it's almost as if there was a interdimensional battle played out overhead. And then, there was things like the Dropa stones that have been found over in China. Now, these things date back 12,000 years. And if you want to picture basically like a stone CD, and it was Russian scientists, they took this thing, they analysed it, They found it contained large amounts of cobalt and other metallic substances, not common in the area. But what they actually done was when they put onto a turntable and measured all the kind of readings coming from it, what they found was there was like an electrical rhythm coming through it, almost like a message per se.
Oh, imagine that.
So, I mean, I think that's just one example that I would use of many, many visitations in the past.
No doubt.
Kevin is absolutely right. I mean, they have been there and they have been saying, hello, welcome to the interstellar universe. And we have basically not been listening because either we don't know how or we're ignoring it.
No doubt. By the way, I want to put, I'm not going to steal this, but Fag Paper in the chat room, they had a little joke for everybody. And so, hey, have you ever seen a quantum duck? You know what they do?
Quark.
Come on,
Kev. Oh, God.
Quark.
Come on, quantum jokes are cool, man. What the bleep?
Oh my goodness gracious! I mean, we're off the deep end now. So I am all about the fact that there are interdimensional beings. There are probably other beings in the universe. Mathematically, for us to be so arrogant as to think we're the only ones out there is just stupid. I mean, dumb.
Absolutely, and I'm blanking on the name of it, but I want to call it the Green Bank equation. That might be right, but I could be wrong. Someone in the chat room will probably give me a correction on that. But basically, it mathematically looks at how many suns are there that can support planets, and how many of those planets would support atmospheres, and how many of those planets with atmospheres, and it goes down the whole row, could support life, and how much of that life would actually evolve, and how much of that evolved life would then become technological and be able to go out into the universe and do all that type of stuff. And it pretty much shows, there's no mathematical way that we would be the only one. Never. It's impossible.
Right. No doubt. And even the Bible says, there are terrestrial bodies, there are celestial bodies, and that, this is the way I envision it. I think that the earth is actually the grand scale of the universe. We're like a Truman Show. That's what we are. We're like a reality TV show for all the inhabitants of the universe, and they look at us and they just do the collective face palm.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, God made the entire universe and everything in it.
Right.
Did he just decide, well, this is going to be the only planet, the rest of it's just there for show?
I mean, for how many years was the world flat?
Really?
Did that make it reality, Kev? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Just because the majority of people hold that belief doesn't make it true. But, I want to get your guys' take on this, and this is something that's always troubled me. We're talking about space and stuff like that, and that'll throw up talk of the first moon landing and all those Apollo missions. And, it was back in October, though, that NASA, their scientists, came out and admitted that we still haven't found a way of passing a human through the Van Allen radiation belt.
Yeah, see, that's a problem. That's a problem for me.
Well, wait a second, though. But, I mean, in theory, the first, John Glenn, the first American to orbit the Earth, he went through the Van Allen belts. We have, everyone that went to the moon went through the Van Allen belts. I mean,
If they went to the moon.
If they went to the moon, Jay.
They went to the moon. Okay.
Jay, did you see it?
You can go but you can go get your telescope and you can actually look at the moon and you can see debris from the moon landings on the moon from Earth.
I believe, I don't know. I don't know if we got there when they said they did. But it still begs the question, if this NASA scientist back just at the tail end of last year is saying that we cannot get through there, then how did these guys get through?
Photoshop.
Kubrick.
Well, technically, I believe it was a set in Nevada. I mean, there was no Photoshop in the 60s.
Yeah, it's like that film Capricorn 1. That was a brilliant movie. Do you ever see that one, guys?
No, I have never seen it. And I'll be honest with you, I am not. I don't buy into the moon landing hoax theory. I think they went to the moon. Personally, I do. But perhaps it didn't happen exactly the way that it went down, and that there was some scripting to it, or perhaps it's a contingency plan. Should something go wrong or something go off course, and they don't want that type of attention, so they have their backup footage to kind of cut and splice.
I mean, if you think about it, I mean, from all the material that's out there that you can read, it was, 37 seconds away from sheer and utter disaster. Now, would NASA have actually, broadcast Eagle 1 crashing into the moon live on TV? Let's think
because
about this,
think about what that would do to the Russians. What would
Right.
that have done to the Russians during the Cold War? It would have emboldened them. They would have been like, "Oh, look at this!"
Khrushchev would have been over there dancing away.
And you bring up the Russians, and that's another reason why they could have faked it as well, because look at the money that the Russians ended up pouring into that space project. And if there was an element of fakery going on the NASA side, then that was a good tactic to kind of weaken the Soviets.
That's a very good point.
It's
That's a very good
economic
point. Like I said,
warfare back
exactly. You're right, and so herein lies the problem. Do I think it was a hoax? No, I don't think it was a hoax. I think we actually went to the moon. And Jay's right. If you have a telescope, any sort of decent telescope, you can see debris on the moon. It's there. I mean, it doesn't just go away. It doesn't blow away. It stays there, unmessed with, unless, of course, it's the aliens on the dark side of the moon that need to go take it to bring to the recycling plant over on the dark side of the moon to power their secret base.
I think that's been dumped there, since they did actually finally probably perfect the way of getting there. But I think probably what Jay hit on and yourself hit on, they would have filmed it in case there was a disaster looming.
Exactly. You always have a contingency. See, that's the thing that people don't realize. They don't see the big picture in regards to the background. What's going on in the background? Foreign policy plays a huge role in everything.
Crisis astronauts.
It was enormous, absolutely enormous, bargaining chip and geopolitical leverage, with the Russians in the Cold War. And let's be fair, that's why they spent the money on it. I mean, I wish they said, "Hey, science is great, and
let's do it for humanity.
Let's do it for humanity, and let's do it for all the right reasons." No, they did it for political reasons because it was the way that we were going to get leverage and quote unquote defeat the Russians without actually going over there and shooting them all.
Right.
And that's the reason they spent everything on it. But if you look at, newsreels and films from, the 40s and 50s and 60s, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's obviously scripted and media was very tightly controlled by the government as far as what you saw and what you didn't see. And that's the reason that things have really radically changed from then to now, is because information is power. And as they lose control of the information, they lose control of power.
Jim said in the chat room, they could have sent an unmanned robot to the moon or a probe to the moon, an unmanned probe, and just kind of,
Ranger 1, yeah, Ranger 2, Ranger 3, Ranger 4, Ranger 5.
Yeah, and then, then you have your footage shot in Nevada that shows the men on the moon. But it could have been...
I'll tell you something, Joe. Sorry, there was just something. You've just made it spring to mind there. And I'm sure the people in the chat may have seen this already, but just recently there was an interesting picture came back from the rover up on Mars.
Oh,
now this
that
picture just happened to have
Photoshop.
What appears to be a shadow cast of somebody. Get this, somebody stood cleaning the rover or bent over the rover, and they didn't even have a helmet on.
That's because he's a Martian. He doesn't need a helmet.
Yeah, exactly. What the hell do Martians need a helmet for? They live there.
That's right.
Joe, I blame you for this because you've got me on that before its news website.
Well, no. See, the
he was just checking it out.
The problem with you is that you sent me that stupid Obama picture on Mars. And I couldn't. So Jay, okay, so he goes, "Hey, look what they just found on Mars," and they took this picture, and it's like a bust of Obama's head.
But he was up there with Andrew Basiago, traveling.
It could. I don't discount anything. I don't. But damn, that's a hard one to swallow.
All things are possible.
That's a hard thing. We were just talking about in class today. We were talking about teleportation, and we got onto this thing about, it actually started with 3D printers, right? So let's just talk about, and we're talking about like automating production lines and all this kind of stuff and what you can do with 3D printing these days. And I said, well, wouldn't it be interesting if if we could do that with humans, just instead of having like a teleporter, because that's a little tough. Yeah, still, we can teleport like a photon, but that's about it for like a microsecond or a nanosecond. But instead of that, what if we were able to take somehow unlock the whole pattern, somebody's pattern, and then just print it on the other side?
Oh, wait, did you say DNA? Oh, a pattern? A what?
Yeah, so just like what was it? The what was
fly.
that? No, there was a movie about a magician, that kept replicating himself, and he'd have to kill the other one every time he did it. The Mystic or so. I can't remember what the heck.
It was Tom Cruise. It was
oh gosh darn it! And I got to look it up.
What a film that was.
Yeah, it was weird. And at the end, there was like a warehouse of just all of these glass tubes with a bunch of Tom Cruises in them because he just kept replicating himself.
Well, I mean, I think you're definitely right, and I think in theory, that's really what the teleporter is. It's basically taking information from one spot and reproducing it in another spot. And if you're 3D printing yourself on the other side of the planet, well, yeah, then the problem is that you're still here. But then it comes to the ultimate question, which I think has boggled the mind of every science fiction writer for hundreds of years, which is if you do that, is that you?
Is that me? Is that
or
you?
Or is that a copy?
Is that you? And is a copy a copy? I mean, and even if it has your DNA and has everything, it's exact duplicate, a clone of you completely, utterly and completely. But is it you? I mean, it might be you to everybody else, but it's not you to you.
Exactly. Like, what are you printing? What are you replicating? And how are you able to, how is that you? Are you printing thought patterns? Are you able to do that? How do you manifest life experience from one to the next? You know what I mean? It's like, damn, there's some really interesting details that are just lacking when it comes to that. Right, Kev?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was Doc Miller. He basically said it was like a copy of you that would go. And it would be to almost an altered dimension, wasn't it? It'd be a different timeline that you would actually go to, a different universe, a different part of the multiverse. Very strange stuff.
I'm going to throw this in real quick. This is some testimony. It looks like I'm trying to pull it up now of U.S. secret space fleets that exist. This is from
Gary McKinnon. He's a major witness there, folks. Come on, he was actually.
Hold on. This is. Let's see here. I'm going to try and pull it up. Mike Gravel, Senator Mike Gravel. I can't remember how to pronounce his name. Talks of a genuine space force. This is pretty interesting.
Anyone else want to jump in? Yes, Sergeant Scott.
Yeah, in June of 2001, President Bush came on scene on ABC News, and it was carried throughout the networks and in Popular Mechanics magazine. He had with him a general from the Air Force, and he was announcing that the general was going to be the head of a new military force called the Space Force. And they were going to build this force and also put a military base on the moon. Now, nobody questioned him on why, what was the purpose for that. But then September 11th comes around, the terrorist attack comes, this general is posted as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the Space Force never comes about. The question I have still, why did he want to create a new military force for outer space unless there's a threat?
We have one. We have a space force. It's in existence. And it's been written about extensively. It's there.
Okay, good. All right.
Okay, so Senator Mike Gravel.
Okay, so we have a space force. How much of the space force is stationed outside of the atmosphere?
I don't know. That's the thing.
That's a very important question, because if it's on the ground, it's like the Navy, but you have no ships.
You take that nugget and you give it to the tinfoil hat community, and they lose their ever-loving mind. And I'm one of them. I lose my mind over stupid stuff like that. Why?
But there is ships.
There's ships. Damn it. There's space dock.
Okay. Well, we have a space. We have a space station, if you want to call it a.
Okay, so it's a little primitive space dock, if you will. You didn't know that it was an intergalactic shipyard.
We have a primitive space dock, and we have some Russian Soyuz capsules that go up there because, of course,
yes.
we can't make any of our own anymore. Well, let's see what happens with Orion, but that's a whole nother story. And or SpaceX, let's go private sector to build some spacecrafts. That's all I have to say. It's going to happen, Joe. It is absolutely going. We are going to have private sector spacecraft going around, and what you pointed out earlier, as soon as some corporation figures out how to either A, get to the moon and mine something, or B, get to an asteroid and move it to low Earth orbit and mine it, or do something with it, and pretty much they're going to just start printing money. Everybody's going to be like, oh my God, how come we never did this before?
The movie's name is The Prestige. That's what it was. I remember it now. Yeah, so basically that's what it was all about. It was about this magician that just kept cloning himself, and then he would have to kill his clone afterwards. He was a magician.
Is that murder or suicide?
So they use a Tesla device to teleport himself, and basically it creates a second one of them. It's weird. I if you get a chance, watch The Prestige. It's an interesting film.
But here's the thing, right? Just to what Jay was saying there about like SpaceX and things like that. Well, what about Stargates? All we would need then is to have major craft built off-world, and then they're built off-world without the restrictions of gravity, and we won't have to blast them off the planet. We've got Gary McKinnon's testimony of ships that aren't on the naval register and transfers between them. And all you do then is you put a Stargate on one of these major ships and have one in Cheyenne Mountain. Boom. Away you go, guys.
Wow, awesome. And how do you bring up Stargates with 1 minute to go? Oh, I tell you what.
That's the world I live in, Joe.
Well, we're out of time. Stay tuned for the Rundown Live coming up next. And then soon after that, Phoenix takes off. Phoenix Rising, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Just a great night of radio ahead. So make sure you stay tuned. And Jay, thanks again for joining us, man. I tell you, every time you come on, it's a real treat because
it was a pleasure. Above and beyond, we're just going to keep going up.
And Kev, same old. This is just a brilliant broadcast and one that we must. And that's a nice thing. Intellectual radio. That's what we're all about. Just kind of.
Yeah. So Jay, if you're ever looking for that, please come on Kev Baker's show one night.
Yeah, dude, definitely. I mean, I don't know. He'd probably make his brain melt. I tell you what.
Me and Marty will take good care of your friend, Joe.
I'm sure you will. So thanks for tuning in, folks. And we'll see you again on Freaky Friday. That's right, Freaky Friday, right here on Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com. Have a great night, everybody.